last time we have already started off with the comprehension of text. Okay, and in the syllabus we have both the poetry and the prose. So we are already dealing with the poetry now. Okay, and last time we did quite a lot where we saw different kinds of poems that we come across. Okay, and in that we discussed about elegies, we discussed about epics. Okay, we discussed about couplets and limericks and ballads and all of these things. I hope you have your notes written down. Okay, and I've also uploaded some of the materials in your classroom. Okay, so to give you a quick overview of whatever we have uploaded in your classroom is I think I've uploaded two of the materials, where one is a YouTube video on reading comprehension and other is a ways of reading a poem. Okay, and the ways of reading a poem is a PDF which is extracted from the York University, and it generally tells you about what a poem is all about. Okay, how to approach a poem and what to look into it. Okay, and in fact how to analyze a poem in an interesting way. That is what is there in the ways of reading a poem in that particular PDF. Okay, and in the other YouTube video which I had posted in your classroom, okay, that talks about that talks in detail about how to comprehend a poem. The poem given there is a little bit of a high standard. Okay, and I don't think North Bengal University would be asking you of such standards, but still we as students of Sujasen Mahavidyalaya, if we are ready with such difficult comprehensions, if we can comprehend such difficult passages, then we can always comprehend the passages that we get in our examinations. Okay, so please go through that video very carefully. Okay, there the lady talks about the metaphors and the similes, and also how to actually understand the question that is given in a particular passage. Okay, so please go through that, and things will be clear to you. Okay, and add it to whatever is there in the comprehension of text on the poetry that is uploaded in their classroom. We always have classes, live classes here, and here we discuss more about how to comprehend the given passages. Okay, so please write down notes while we are having classes, so that it is added in whatever you read in your classrooms. Okay, so so just a quick review of what we did in our last class. Okay, so we have already said that we have already actually understood what a poem is. No, so last time we were discussing that poetry is the shortest form of expressing our emotions. Okay, so if someone is expressing in 3 pages about a sunny day, the same can be expressed in just about 2 verses in a poem. Okay. So after that, we looked into how we can categorize the poems into different categories, starting with elegies and then epics and ballads and limericks and couplets. Okay, so once you recognize what kind of a poem it is, whether it is an epic or a ballad or an elegy, then you can write more on that. So in the given passage, the poet uses the elegy form of a poem. That is why the tone of the poem is sad and mournful. Okay, and then you can find out words in the particular poems which actually connotates what sadness is actually describes the sad tone in it. Okay, likewise in the ballad it is a romantic expression of one's emotions. Okay, so again, once you recognize that the poet is using the ballad form of writing a poem, then again you can say that ballads are particularly a form of celebration. That is why there are so many words which expresses celebration in that particular passage, and then you can write about 2 3 lines more on by relating your passage and your answers to the ballads. Okay, so this is how we actually start comprehending a poem. Okay, yes, Ria, you want to say something? Okay. Okay, if you want to say okay, if you want to say something, you can always raise a hand, or you can unmute yourself and then tell excuse me. Then you can always tell, okay, you are always welcome for discussions in my classroom. I'm sure you people are going through the uploads in the classroom, okay? And you people should also go through it carefully so that we can have healthy discussions in the classroom, okay? So the
Hello,
more,
sir.
yes, dear
Sir, I
Shweta, yes,
haven't get any link.
of what?
This code I haven't get.
How didn't you are already? Oh, you are not there in the classroom.
I'm not in classroom.
You are in English honors though, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so what you do is you go to the English departmental WhatsApp, okay, and there I have posted a screenshot
Yes,
of
sir.
my classroom, okay, and there you will, in that screenshot particularly, you will find written class code. So whatever class code is there, you copy that and then you enter into the classroom. You know how to enter into a classroom, right, Shweta?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so that is how you just go to the Google and then say join the class. Then whenever then the Google will ask you for the class code, you enter the class code, you there, and then you'll be there in my classroom. Okay, once you enter the classroom, you'll find all the materials there.
Okay, sir.
Is that okay,
Thank you,
Shweta?
sir. Okay,
Yeah, you
sir.
should go to the WhatsApp, departmental WhatsApp, okay?
Okay, sir.
Okay. So others, I think you people are already there, and so you people should constantly check your classrooms, okay, to keep yourself updated. It's just like a Facebook. Okay, so whenever you see a Facebook, side by side you see a classroom as well. So there you can find out materials, whatever is posted there, go through them, and then you will be more ready for the class. Okay, so we have already bracketed our poems into different kinds there. Okay, now moving on from the part where we have already recognized what kind of poems are there, we now move on to the sound and rhyming scheme of a poem. Okay, so now a poem is different from a prose. Why? Because it has a particular rhyming scheme, it has a particular sound, okay, and it has a particular aesthetic feeling into it, okay, more than the prose. Okay, so whenever you read a poem you feel like you are reading a song, okay, or whenever you read a poem you feel like you are looking into a painting. That is what the PDF in your classroom also talks about. Okay, so if you love music, if you love photography, if you love paintings, then you actually love poetry as well. Okay, because all of these has the same kind of aesthetic feelings in it. Okay, the prose is towards more of telling you a story and taking you back in time, and saying things one after the other so that you understand the prose as a story. But now if you compare the same thing towards your poetry, then poetry is more like an expression of the same feelings, but in a more aesthetic manner. Okay, with more of a pleasing sound, with a more of a pleasing tone. Okay, with a more of a particular pattern that you can hold on to, right from the first line until the very end of your poem. Okay, so today we'll just look into these sound and rhyming schemes, and then also look into something known as the figure of speech, which is really important whenever you are looking into a poem. Also, your parts of speech is also important. Okay, but more than that, the figure of speech gives you the ultimate description of a poem. Okay, so to start off with the sounds. Okay, a poem has a particular rhyming scheme. All of the poems. Okay, and if even if it doesn't have a rhyming scheme, then there is something known as a free verse. Okay, which actually uses some kind of a familiar tone right from the beginning until the end. Okay, so whenever you are describing or comprehending a poem, uh, you should look into these rhyming patterns. Okay, now towards the end of our class earlier, we talked about the rhyming scheme in a nutshell. Okay, we'll just look into it in a more detailed manner. Okay, so now whenever you find a poem, you look into the last word that is used in a poem, in a line, in a particular line in a poem. So, and then you find a particular kind of a pattern. Okay, so there might be by, I, or back, black used. Okay, or ply, glorify, or lack and jack. Okay, so if the first line uses by, okay, so for example, the line might be some candle clear burns somewhere I come by. Like, I'll just read the four lines so that you can understand the rhyming pattern. Okay, so the poem is by Gerard Manley Hopkins. Okay, the poem is known as the Candle Indoors. Why I'm telling you orally is because poem is actually a oral tradition. Okay, it is particularly said by a particular person, and then the listener listens to the poem and then understands it. Okay, it precedes the writing tradition. Okay, the prose, I think the prose started the writing tradition, but the poems were always in a oral tradition. It was always said. Okay, so in that manner, if I have to recite the poem The Candle Indoors, okay, the first four line goes this way. Some candle clear burns somewhere I come by. I muse at how it's being put blissful back. With yellowy moisture, mild nights, blear all black, or to fro tender tambions truckle at the eye. Okay, now the first line says, some candle clear burns somewhere I come by. Okay, and the second says, I muse at how it's being put blissful back. Now the by and back doesn't match, right? So what you write is the by. Nearby, your rhyming scheme would be represented by a letter A. The second line, I muse at how it's being put blissful back. Now the back doesn't match with by, so you write B. If it had matched the word by, okay, in the second line, then you would be writing A. But since it is a completely different rhyme, it doesn't even come close to the sound of the word by. Okay, the back is completely different, right? So that is why you write B. Now in the third line, it says, with yellowy moisture, mild nights, clear all black. Now here you can find that the second line, which is I muse at how it's being put blissful back, is rhyming with the third line, which is saying with yellowy moisture, mild nights, blear all black. Right? So the back and black is rhyming. Right, students? Is it rhyming? Back and black?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So now if it is rhyming, then you say you have already put B besides back. So then the third line will also be B. Okay, because back and black is matching. So it is B, B. Now the first line is A, right? The some candle clear burns somewhere I come by. This is the first line. So the last word is by. Okay. Now when we come to the fourth line of the poem, then the poem says, or to fro tender trambins truckle at the eye. Right? So now the by and the I is rhyming here. Right? So now you have already written A beside by the first line. So now the fourth line will also be A. Why? Because by and I is rhyming with each other. So your rhyming scheme would be first line is A, right? The second line is back, in which you had written B, right? So A, B, and the third line is black, which is matching with the second line. So it would be B again. So until now it is A, B, B. And the fourth line is or to fro tender trambin truckle at the eye, which is now again I is what, students? What is it matching with I?
Sir, by.
Yeah, the first line, right? By. Yeah, the first line by. So by and I is matching. So besides by, you had written A. So in the fourth line also, you will write A. So the rhyming scheme would be A, B, B, A. Clear? If not clear, I can again come again.
Sir, clear.
Okay.
Sir.
Yeah. Wait, if I can. Okay, so that is I will upload the rhyming scheme in your classroom. That would make it much more clear. Okay, but for the discussion here in the classroom, how to actually recognize and write a rhyming scheme is this way. Okay, so a poem particularly has stanzas, and that stanzas has different lines. Okay, so if the first line is matching with the second line, then it would be AA. So if, for example, if it was some candle clear burns somewhere I come by, this is the first line, and if the second line was or to for tender trambins truckle at the eye, then it would be, the rhyming scheme would be A, A, right? Because by and I matches with each other. And then if the third line was I muse at how it's being put blissful back, and the fourth line would be with yellowy moisture mild nights blear all black, then it would be B, B. Then the rhyming scheme would be A, A, B, B. Right, dear students?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay. So that is how we actually understand the rhyming scheme. So whatever poem is given to you, okay, it will have a particular rhyming scheme. If it doesn't have a rhyming scheme, then you can write that the poem is in free verse. Okay, it is in free verse, and the poem uses a particular tone. So if the poem is a limerick, then it has a particular light tone. It has it has a comic a tone in it, and that is the tone that the poet uses right from the beginning until the end. Though you may not find any rhyming schemes there. Okay, now this is a general kind of a rhyming pattern that you'll find in the poems that you come across. Okay. Now, added to these kind of rhyming patterns, okay, we have something known as the types of rhyme. Okay, so there are so many different kinds of rhyme. Okay, so there, to name them, you can please write it down. Okay, all these are important things to comprehend the poem. Okay, so to name them, they are perfect rhyme, that is number one. The other one is forced rhyme. Okay, the third one is slant rhyme. Okay, and the fourth one is masculine rhyme. Now, added to these four, there are two more, which adds up to the rhyming patterns, which are known as feminine rhyme and visual rhyme. Okay, so six different kinds of rhyming patterns are there. Namely, the first one, perfect rhyme, the second one, forced rhyme, the third one, slant rhyme, the fourth one, masculine rhyme, the fifth one, feminine rhyme, and the last one, visual rhyme. Okay, now I will just explain this a little bit, and again I will be uploading materials in the classroom, then you would be understanding it more properly. Okay, but for now you just have to write down notes. Okay, so a perfect rhyme is a rhyme which is perfectly rhyming with one another. Okay, which means whenever you hear that particular rhyme, meaning pattern, okay, whatever rhyming words are there, it is perfectly rhyming with one another. So, what would be the perfect rhyming words? Like by and I, okay, both of these are perfect rhyme, right? Why? Because they are sounding the same. It has an oral correspondence. Okay, the technical term is AURAL, oral. That means auditory, something that you can hear. And correspondence means it is similar. Okay, so by I, certain, curtain. Okay, so both of these has what is perfectly rhyming with one another. Okay, so that is a perfect rhyme. So whenever you are describing a poem and you come across words like certain or curtain or by and I, okay, or dear and fear, okay, all of these are perfect rhymes. So you can say that the poet is using a perfect rhyming scheme here. Okay, with the words like curtain and certain and all of these, and added to that, you can say by using these kind of perfect rhymes, the poet wants to show the perfection in the descriptions that he is given in the poem. Okay, so you can always add up to whatever things you describe. Okay, so first you look into the rhyming scheme. Okay, the A B B A and A B B A or A B B. Okay, or A B C and then B C A. Okay, all of these rhyming schemes are there, and then after that you look into whether the rhymes are perfect rhyme, forced rhyme, slant rhyme, masculine rhyme, feminine rhyme, or visual rhyme. Okay, so now after the perfect rhyme, we go on to something known as forced rhyme. Okay, now forced rhyme is something which is unnatural. Okay, um, which is there, in which the poet has just used words which rhymes with one another, and it is all over the place. Okay, for example, the cat sat on the mat. Okay, now the cat sat on the mat is not a great poem or a great a rhyming line that you can find. It is a forced rhyme. Okay, the poet is using the cat and sat and mat and dat and whatever. Why? Now you can say that poet is using this so that it has a comic tone in it, or maybe so that it has a comic tone in it, and it is understandable to the children, or maybe it has a comic tone so that the children can remember it. Okay, so it is not a natural rhyme like the people were certain that there was something behind the curtain. Okay, this is a much more mature lines that is coming one after the other, and that is using the words like certain and curtain. Okay, it is coming more naturally than the unnatural rhyme, which is known as the forced rhyme. Okay, so perfect rhyme and forced rhyme. Clear, students? Clear? Is there any doubt in perfect rhyme and forced rhyme? If you have, please, you can ask me. No doubt? Is it clear? Please tell me if it is clear. Then I can move on to the other rhyming schemes.
Yes, sir. Clear.
Okay, so yeah, so whenever you find a poem, you look into all of these: perfect rhyme, forced rhyme. Now the slant rhyme. Okay, slant rhyme, the words that you see in a poem are similar. Okay, but unlike the perfect rhyme, it doesn't have a complete oral correspondence. Okay, so whenever you see the words like for example, found and kind. Okay, so maybe the poem is like the ball was found and the person gave it and the ball was found uh, and the children got it back from the person who was kind. Okay, so whenever you look into the last two letters of the word found and kind, the found spelling is found. Okay, so the nd is there, and also in kind the kind is there, right? So nd and nd is there in both of these words, but still it doesn't sound the same, right? So found and kind, it doesn't sound the same, though they look similar, right? They're looking similar. Okay, the words are looking similar, and in fact it has similar kind of letters in that particular word. Okay, so these kinds of rhyme is known as a slant rhyme. Okay, so it has a slanting correspondence to one another. Okay, so the other example would be looked and frightened. Okay, so the cat looked and the child got frightened. Okay, if this is the line, the child looked is the first line, and the cat looked is the first line, and the second line is the child got frightened. Okay, it kind of looks similar. Why? Because again the look has ed in it and the frightened has ed in it, right? So both of these kind of looks the similar, and then you might say that it is a perfect rhyme, but whenever you say it out loud, it doesn't rhyme with one another. It doesn't rhyme perfectly with one another. Okay, again the other example would be grime and game. Again, okay, me and me is there. Okay, both of these words have me and me, but still they are sounding different, right? So these kind of rhymes are known as slant rhymes. Again, the poet is using the slant rhyme in order to force whatever is there in the theme of the poem. Okay, so that is slant rhyme. Now moving on to the masculine rhyme. Masculine rhyme is something which has just one stressed syllable. Okay. Do you people understand what the syllable is? No one? Okay, you people should go and look into what syllable is. Okay. To tell you in a nutshell, a syllable is something which is said in one chest pulse. That means in one 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 air breathing that you breathe out whenever you are pronouncing a word. So, for example, fight. So, whenever you say fight, okay, you can say it out loud in your particular homes, okay, or maybe stove, or maybe drove. Okay, there's one air pulse that is going out from your mouth. There is no two air pulses that are going out from your mouth, unlike what can I say? Elephant. Okay, in elephant there are elephant. Okay, a that is one chest pulse, li that is two chest pulse, and the fen. Okay, in that you can actually feel the air going out three times from your mouth. Elephant. Okay, elephant. Okay, so three syllables. Okay, in fight there's just one chest pulse that is going on. In stove there is just one chest pulse that is going out. In car there's one chest pulse that is going out. Okay, so in a masculine rhyme there is just one single stressed syllable. Stressed means you actually find the stress whenever you are saying that word and the air is going out from your mouth. So fight, as if, okay, that is the stress in it. In stove, that is the stress in it. Book, that is the stress in it. Okay, so all of these are masculine rhyme. Okay, so if the sentence is the boys had a fight because the boys had a fight to open a container that was tight. Okay, so now this is a masculine rhyme. Okay, you can also say that it is a perfect rhyme, but added to the perfect rhyme, okay, it is a masculine rhyme. Now curtain. Now the perfect rhyme, okay, the example that we used in the perfect rhyme, the curtain and the certain. Now it has two syllables there, right? Curtain, two syllables. One unstressed cur, that is unstressed. Ten is a stressed one. Curtain, again two syllables, right? So that is why it is not a masculine rhyme. But in your fight and tight or strove or trove, it is just one syllable that is coming out from your mouth. Okay, so that is a masculine rhyme. So the poet is using a masculine rhyme here to show, again, whatever the theme of the poem is, or whatever that particular line is telling you. Okay, so that is a masculine rhyme. Now the another one is a feminine rhyme. Okay, now a feminine rhyme has one stressed syllable followed by an unstressed syllable. Again, like curtain or certain or carrot and garret. Okay, or server and never, right? Ne, that is ver, unstressed, right? Carrot. Okay, one is stressed and the other one is unstressed. Okay, so So that is how you differentiate between a masculine rhyme and a feminine rhyme. A masculine rhyme just has one single stressed syllable, and a feminine rhyme has two syllables, in which one would be stressed and the other one would be unstressed. Okay, so in added to the perfect rhymes that you recognize in a poem, okay, you can always go one step forward and say that in that perfect rhyming scheme, the poet uses it as a feminine rhyme. Okay, or if there is some kind of first rhyme, the cat sat on the mat. Okay, the cat is just one a chest pulse, one stress syllable. Okay, which is a masculine rhyme cat. Okay, so once you recognize it to be a perfect rhyme or a forced rhyme or a slant rhyme, okay, added to that, you can always say that it is a masculine rhyme or a feminine rhyme. Okay, and then after that, the last one is the visual rhyme. Okay, now visual rhyme is something which rhymes visually. Okay, but when you say it out loud, it doesn't sound the same. For example, slaughter and laughter. Right, so slaughter and laughter is you kind of hear it to be same, but it is not same. But whenever you look into the word, okay, just like the slant rhythm, okay, the slant rhyming scheme, okay, just like that, whenever you look into that particular word, it 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 looks to be it the same, and it also hints to be the same when it is said out loud. Okay, but when you actually say it out loud, it doesn't rhyme with one another. Okay, so slaughter and laughter it kind of rhymes with one another, but not exactly rhymes with one another. Okay, so that gives you a visual rhyme. Okay, so the visual rhyme will have the spellings quite similar to one another, more similar than the slant rhyme. Okay, if the slant rhyme has just two letters that are similar to one another in a word, then a visual rhyme will have more than two letters that are similar in a word. Okay, so maybe also daughter and laughter. Okay, and both of these also has more than one letters that are similar to one another, so that becomes a visual rhyme. Okay, so whenever you are describing or comprehending a poem, you would be bracketing your rhyming schemes into all of these kind of rhymes. So perfect rhyme and forced rhyme and slant rhyme and masculine rhyme and feminine rhyme and visual rhyme. Okay, so the rhyming scheme, okay, the rhyming scheme gives you the tone of and the sound of the poem. Okay, and once you get the tone and the sound of the poem, then we go into the types of rhyme, which is perfect rhyme, forced rhyme, okay, slant rhyme, masculine rhyme, feminine rhyme, and visual rhyme. Added to all of these six kind of rhymes, there is one more, okay, a technical rhyme which is known as internal rhyme. Okay, now internal rhyme is a rhyming pattern where the rhyme is found in that particular line itself. Okay, generally in a poem, to find a rhyme, you go from one sentence to the other, right? So if your poem is once upon a midnight dreary, while I pondered weak and weary, we always think it to be to be like the first line would be once upon a midnight dreary, and the next line would be while I pondered weak and weary. Okay, but if the rhyming, if this particular two lines are are are, are aligned in just one a long line. Okay, so imagine it to be not two lines but one long line where it is saying, once upon a midnight dreary, while I pondered weak and weary. That is just one long line. Then it becomes a internal rhyme. Okay, so the rhyme is found in that particular sentence itself. You do not have to go into the another line. Okay, in that particular line itself. So that line becomes a internal rhyme. So the poet is using a internal rhyming pattern. Okay, so where the rhyme is seen in one particular line. Okay, another example would be, while I nodded, nearly napping, suddenly there came a tapping. Okay, rather than using two lines, if the poet is using just one line to say this particular thing, then it happens to be a internal rhyme. Okay, so six kind of clear cut rhyming patterns. Okay, where you have perfect, forced, slant, masculine, feminine, and visual rhyme. Plus, added to that, one more would be your internal rhyme, where the rhyme that you find would be internally in that particular line itself. Okay, so that is internal rhyme. So, with these kind of rhyming, with you recognizing these kind of rhyming patterns, okay, and then also looking into the rhyming scheme, that is A B B A or A B B A A, okay, or A B C D, then again C D C D, okay. This becomes your general description of the structure of the poem. Okay, so the content would be, maybe the poem is talking about a nightingale, or maybe the poem is talking about a home, or maybe the poem is talking about a sunny day. That would be your theme or the content of the poem. Okay, but the structure of the poem, okay, the structure that the poet uses would actually rest in the rhyming patterns and the tones and the sounds of a particular poem. Okay, now with these, we actually finish off with the rhyming pattern and the sound and the tone of our poems. Okay, we actually with these we actually understand the particular structure and the tone of the poem that is given to us, or the passage that is given to us. Okay, now once we are clear with the structure of the poem, okay, this is the structure of the poem, whatever we have discussed, okay, and the content of the poem. Okay, so whatever the theme of the poem is, okay, we look into the figures of speech now. Okay, so what is the figures of speech, if I have to ask the class now? If anyone can tell me what is the figure of speech, if I have to tell you. You do not have to give me a definition, whatever you understand by figure of speech. Again, you do not have to be correct. Okay, you can be wrong and we can always correct ourselves as a class. Anyone who can help me out?
So
with
literary.
Sorry?
So literary device.
Okay, it is a literary device, but what is it? Like parts of speech is what? Conjunctions and prepositions and all of these things, right?
Yes, sir.
Right. So, what is figure of speech? If someone can tell me. It is more of a literary device, like our friend said. Okay, the part of speech is more of a language device. right? It is more close towards the language because it talks about the conjunctions and the prepositions and the nouns and the verbs and all of these things. Okay, the figure of speech is more towards the literature. Okay, and uh, and what is it? If someone can a little bit help me out. Okay, now figure of speech is something, okay, that we use in order to make the sentence creative, okay, or to make the sentence much more comprehensible creatively. Okay, so we use figures in it, different kinds of figures in it. Okay, the figures would come in the form of simile or metaphor or personification or hyperbole. All of these kind of things are figures of speech. Okay, so whenever you are analyzing a poem, okay, the the parts of speech is important, as we discussed in the previous class a little bit, where we are focusing on the punctuations, the commas, the conjunctions, okay, the nouns and the verbs, all of these things. Okay, how is a verb used in that particular poem, or how is a noun used in that particular poem? Okay, why is the conjunction used in there? Okay, why is the exclamation used there? All of these things are parts of speech. Okay, so you describe the parts of speech in a poem, but added to that, you also describe the figure of speech. In fact, you find lots of figures of speech in a poem used by various poets. Okay, so whenever we are analyzing a poem, we analyze the figure of speech. Okay, so there might be so many metaphors that are used. Okay, there might be so many hyperboles that are used. Okay, there might be personifications, there may be euphemisms. Okay, there might be oxymorons, there might be ironies there. Okay, there might be puns there. Okay, so all of these things are used in a poem by the poet, and you as a reader, whenever you are understanding the poem, we look into the use of all of these kinds of figures of speech and how it is affecting the poem. Okay, so since we are already late with the time, and we are about to get over with the 1 hour that we are given to us, okay, we will just see the types of figures of speech that are there. Okay, and then we will discuss a little bit more into the details in our next class. Okay, so today you can just write down the figures of speech in your notebooks, okay, so that you can go home and at least know what these kinds of figures of speech are there, and then when we come back in the next class, we can discuss it as a class rather than me dictating about what is the figures of speech and how many types are there and what is this and what is that. Okay, you can read all of these by yourself, and then when we come in the next class, we can actually discuss as a class. Okay, so please write it down. The different figures of speech that you can find in a poem is: number one, personification. Okay, so there are so many personifications that are used. Okay, that is, you give human traits to inanimate objects, right? So you personify. Okay, so the mobile is crying just like a baby. Okay, so that is a personification. Okay, the mobile is noisy as a small child. Okay, so you are personifying the mobile phone here. Okay, the another one would be euphemism. Okay, euphemism is something which dilutes the harsh reality. Okay, so when a euphemism is used, words such as passed away is used instead of he died. Okay, or instead of he was fired, you can say he was let off. Okay, so the harsh or the rude realities are covered up by using euphemism words. Okay, the other one would be your hyperbole. Okay, your hyperbole would be sentences like I've told him 1,000 of times. You never say anything to anyone 1,000 times. Okay, so your teachers might be saying that I asked mm, I asked Ria to submit the project 1,000 times. Okay, or I asked Ashwini to submit her assignment 1,000 times. But actually, your teacher doesn't say it 1,000 times. It's just a hyperbole that is used. It is an exaggeration. Okay, so that is a hyperbole. Okay, so in a poem, okay, there might be so many hyperboles that are used by a poet. Okay, the next one would be the most commonly used are metaphor and similes. Okay, so metaphor doesn't use as or like, while simile uses as or like. Okay, so example of metaphors is Shakespeare saying the world is a stage. Okay, so if it was the world is like a stage, then it would be a simile. Okay, but since he's saying the world is a stage directly, okay, or or Kabita has a heart of stone, then it is a metaphor. If the same thing I say by using these words that Kabita has a heart just like a stone, then it would be a simile. Why? Because I'm using a like a, okay, or as. These kind of like or as the comparative words, okay, will make you understand that it is a simile. But if it is directly said, saying that Kabita has a heart of stone, then it is a metaphor. Okay, so the poet is either using a metaphor or a simile or a hyperbole, okay, or a euphemism, and all of these things. And added to that, you also find oxymorons and irony in your poems. Okay, so oxymoron is uh, something in which two contradictory terms are used together. Okay, uh, he was deadly alive. Okay, so that is an oxymoron where two opposite kind of words are used to signify something. Okay, there was a small crowd. So a crowd generally denotes it to be a large gathering of people. Okay, but you are saying there was a small crowd, which is a oxymoron in it. Okay, so there are two contradictory uh, words there. Okay, so the UN has a peacekeeping force, right? So it is a force which actually forces peace. Okay, again, oxymoron is there. Okay, so a poet, different poets might be using these kind of oxymorons in their passages, and we as readers would be comprehending them. Okay, now added to oxymoron, there is something which is known as irony. Okay, now irony is a contrast between the appearance and the reality. Okay, that is whatever is said is not meant. Okay, so it was raining. What would be the example? it was the land was dry, though it was raining every day. Okay, so every day it was raining and the land was dry. Is a irony in it. Why? Because whenever it rains, the land was supposed to be wet, but it is dry. So the irony is there. Okay, so the reality is actually it should be wet, but the appearance is dry. Okay, so it was raining heavily and the land was dry. Okay, so this is an irony. Okay, added to that, we also have something known as pun. Okay, so pun is something that that has two meanings in it. Okay, so the days of your examinations are numbered. Okay, so the word numbered has a pun here, which means uh, it is counting, the numbers is counting, that is one meaning. The numbered is a, the other meaning is it is a much more serious thing where it is numbered and you are expected to perform. Otherwise, numbered means there are going to be some kind of severe consequences that would happen. Okay, uh, so these kind of words would actually denote what a pun is. Uh, Time flies like an arrow is also a pun. Okay, where the arrow has a pun in it. Okay, it flies and it pierces. So the flying part is one meaning, and the arrow, the piercing part is the another meaning in it. Okay, so the pun has two meanings in it. Generally, it is used to express humor in a poem. Okay, so these are the kinds of figures of speech that you actually find in a poem. Okay, we will do all of these things. We'll discuss these figures of speech in a much more detailed manner in our next class. Okay, we'll discuss as a class so that we clarify about our doubts and we understand it more properly. Okay, I will be again uploading materials related to all of these discussions that we had today in our class. Okay, so whenever we are comprehending a poem, okay, if I have to present our class in a nutshell, the things would be we first recognize a poem, okay, to be into different categories, okay, where we discussed it to be a ballad or an epic or line break, all of these things. Then we look into the sound and the tone, okay, the rhyming schemes, the different rhyming patterns, okay, and then we go into the parts of speech and the figures of speech that are used in a poem. Okay, so whenever we analyze all of these things that we discussed in our classes, okay, we can actually understand and comprehend a poem. And once we do that, we can answer any question that is given or based on that particular poem or the passage that is given to you. Okay, so that is what comprehending a poem is all about. Okay, so we are almost done with the comprehension of poem part. Okay, we will maybe do 15 minutes more in our next class. Okay, then we'll start off with the comprehension of text, the prose part. Okay, so we'll start off with the comprehension of prose in our next class. Okay, so I hope the comprehension of poetry is quite clear to the class. Okay, if there are any questions, you can ask me. I can wait for 5 minutes for your questions, or or rather, maybe you have to go back to your classroom, okay, read more on whatever we have uploaded in the classroom, and then you understand actually whatever is going on in the classroom, and then the next class maybe you can come up with your questions. I assume that you people are writing down notes, okay? You people are matured enough to write down notes, whatever is important and whatever is not. So rather than me forcing you every now and then to write down, okay, you people should be mature enough to write down whatever discussions are going on in the class. Okay. Are there any questions, students, from your side?
Sir,
Yes, Ashwini.
so what's the difference between oxymoron and pun?
Uh, pun means it is much more a satire, Ashwini. Okay. And oxymoron is the absolute opposites. Okay, so a pun has two meanings which might not be opposite. Okay, so the time flies like an arrow is it is showing that it is flying like an arrow, and the other one, the arrow is giving you a meaning of piercing you. The time is piercing you. Okay, so that is a pun. But in an oxymoron, okay, the complete opposites are there, like we saw it in the example of small crowd. Okay, so a crowd is generally a big thing, right? But you are putting the word small in front of the crowd, so it becomes a oxymoron, where this doesn't categorize you to be a pun. But now if I say that the crowd was small. Okay, if I put it this way, the crowd is small, then the pun might be there in the small word, where the meaning of the small is one, the crowd was very small in the gathering, okay, or the other meaning would be the crowd comprised of only small people, okay, not big adults, just the small people there. Okay, so that is a pun. So the pun doesn't actually show you the complete opposites of one another. Okay, it just shows two meanings. The word shows two meanings. Okay, so the pun has two meanings. So one word has two meanings in it. So if I say as slippery as a banana, so it might be one, it might connotate that the banana is slippery, and the other thing might be the banana would be something else. Okay, it's the meaning is not coming up in my mind, but to tell you, to give you a simple explanation, the pun would be it has two meanings. The one word has two meanings, like the word arrow. It has two meanings. Okay, but in an oxymoron, it doesn't have a two meaning. It is just the use of two different words together, like peace force. UN has a peace force. Okay, so the peace force doesn't have any pun in it. Okay, it just has an oxymoron. Okay, Ashwini, is that clear, or was I confusing in my
I think
description?
yeah.
Clear, Ashwini?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay, so just keep that in mind. You know, an oxymoron has just two different opposite words that are used. Okay, and in a pun, the one word has two meanings, which might not be opposite at all. Okay, so a
Yes,
pun might not have opposite meanings. It will have two meanings. The one word will have two meanings, but they might not be opposite. But in an oxymoron, there are two different opposite words that are used together. Okay, Ashwini?
yes, sir.
Okay. Okay, so students should participate like Ashwini is doing, so that I'm pretty sure all the students also has some confusions regarding oxymoron and pun and all of these things. So whenever you ask, okay, the whole class gets clarified. Even me as a teacher gets clarified. Okay, so I might not be very clear in while describing certain things, But whenever I'm describing it the second time, I, as a teacher, would be much more clearer in explaining things to you. And that ways, I myself would be much more clearer on things whenever I have to explain it to my students in future. Okay, that way we are helping each of us in our class. You as students and me as teacher as well. Okay, class.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so I think I should end my class today. Okay, and next class again we'll meet up. And please, for the next class again, I would be uploading materials. The materials are already there in your classrooms, but I'll be uploading more materials for you people to be clear with the comprehension of your poetry. Okay, and then again next class we'll start off with the comprehension of poetry for maybe 10-15 minutes, and then we'll move on to our next topic, which is comprehension of prose. Okay, students?
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you so much for attending. Have a nice time ahead. Take care.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, bye bye.
Thank you,
Bye,
sir.
sir.
Thank you, sir.